Few philosophers have had more immediate, dramatic, and controversial practical impact than Rousseau. His ideas didn't remain abstract theory, they became revolutionary ideology, and revolutionaries used them to justify radical transformation of societies and sometimes mass violence. The French Revolution claimed Rousseau as its prophet. Revolutionary leaders quoted the social contract constantly. Robespierre saw himself as implementing Rousseau's vision. The revolutionary government's actions reflected Rousseauian logic, claiming to express the general will, demanding civic virtue, suppressing factions, creating civic festivals to build republican sentiment. The terror itself drew on Rousseauian concepts. If the general will is infallible, and if the revolutionary government expresses that will, then enemies of the revolution are enemies of the people's will itself. They can be forced to be free, or, if incorrigible, eliminated as obstacles to the general will. Rousseau provided language for this. Those who refuse to obey the general will must be compelled. Whether the terror represents authentic application of Rousseau's principles or catastrophic misunderstanding remains fiercely debated. Critics argue Rousseau's intolerance of dissent, demand for unanimity around the common good, and elimination of intermediate associations between individual and state logically lead to totalitarianism. The general will becomes whatever revolutionary leaders declare it to be, with no institutional checks. Defenders respond that revolutionaries distorted Rousseau's ideas. He never advocated violent revolution or purging enemies. His general will required actual deliberation by citizens, not declaration by dictators. His small republic vision is incompatible with revolutionary France's centralized state. The terror betrays, rather than implements, Rousseau's principles. Beyond the French Revolution, Rousseau influenced democratic movements worldwide. His insistence on popular sovereignty rather than merely popular consent inspired democratic activists. His emphasis on equality as prerequisite for legitimate government influenced egalitarian movements. His critique of representation influenced direct democracy advocates. Rousseau also influenced political thought more broadly. His social contract theory, despite differences from Hobbes and Locke, established the contractual framework as dominant in political philosophy. His concept of the general will, despite its problems, introduced the idea that legitimate authority must serve genuinely common interests rather than particular ones. His critique of commercial society and artificial needs influenced Marx and socialist thought. His emphasis on civic virtue influenced Republican political theory. His recognition that legitimate government requires shared values influenced communitarian critiques of liberalism. But Rousseau's legacy is deeply contested. Liberal political theorists see him as democracy's enemy. His general will eliminates individual rights. His direct democracy is impractical. His civil religion is totalitarian. His critique of representation undermines functional government. They trace modern totalitarianism partly to Rousseau's dangerous ideas about forcing people to be free. Others see Rousseau as democracy's true founder. Unlike Locke's representative government, where people elect masters, Rousseau insists people must govern themselves directly. Unlike Hobbes' authorization of absolute sovereign, Rousseau insists sovereignty remains permanently with the people. He alone among social contract theorists truly meant popular sovereignty literally.
Contemporary democratic theory largely rejects Rousseau's conclusions while grappling with his problems. We accept that legitimate government requires more than periodic elections. We recognize that representation creates its own issues. We understand that democratic self-government requires civic commitments beyond narrow self-interest. We acknowledge that constitutional arrangements rest on shared values. But we reject Rousseau's solutions. We accept representative democracy's legitimacy. We protect minority rights against majority rule. We maintain institutional checks on popular sovereignty. We separate state from religious or civic ideology. We embrace pluralism rather than demanding unity around common good. This tension reveals Rousseau's enduring significance. He identified genuine problems in democratic theory that subsequent thought has struggled to resolve. Can we have effective government while maintaining popular sovereignty? Can we protect minority rights while respecting majority rule? Can we maintain democratic legitimacy without direct participation? Can we sustain civic commitment without demanding too much? Rousseau's answers may not satisfy us, but his questions remain central to democratic theory and practice. Every debate about direct versus representative democracy, about civic education, about shared values in pluralistic societies, about the tension between individual rights and collective goods, echoes Rousseau's concerns.
The social contract remains one of political philosophy's most influential and controversial texts. Rousseau didn't offer comfortable answers or easy solutions. He demanded a radical reimagining of political legitimacy and challenged assumptions that Hobbes and Locke had established. Where Hobbes created absolute sovereignty to escape the state of nature, and Locke created limited government to protect natural rights, Rousseau insisted that true legitimacy requires the people themselves remaining permanently sovereign, exercising legislative power directly, subordinating private interest to common good. His vision inspired democratic revolutions and movements for popular government. It provided the theoretical foundation for insisting that the people are not just the source of authority, but the continuous exercise of authority. It challenged the idea that representation is adequate for democratic legitimacy. But his vision also produced its own horrors when revolutionaries claimed to express the general will while suppressing dissent. When dictators justified tyranny as forcing people to be free. When governments demanded total civic commitment on pain of death. This dual legacy, inspiring democracy and justifying totalitarianism, reflects genuine tensions in Rousseau's thought. His uncompromising commitment to popular sovereignty and equality produced insights but also dangers. His refusal to accept the compromises that make government functional in large, complex, diverse societies made his theory at once more radical and less applicable. Perhaps Rousseau's greatest contribution is forcing us to recognize democracy's difficulty. It's not enough to hold elections or protect individual rights. Democratic self-government requires active citizens who care about the common good, relative equality so all can participate effectively, shared commitments that bind the community, and constant vigilance against corruption of the general will by particular interests. These demands are heavy. Meeting them fully may be impossible in modern mass societies, but recognizing them as democracy's aspirations, even if imperfectly achieved, distinguishes genuine self-government from its simulacrum. Rousseau also forces us to confront democracy's paradoxes. How can we respect individual freedom while requiring civic obligations? How can we protect minority rights while respecting majority rule? How can we combine popular sovereignty with functional representative government? How can we maintain shared civic commitments in pluralistic societies? Modern democratic theory consists largely of attempts
to resolve these Rousseauan dilemmas without accepting his radical solutions. We want popular sovereignty without direct democracies and practicality. We want civic unity without enforced civil religion. We want the general will's legitimacy without eliminating individual rights or minority protections. Whether these compromises succeed, or simply evade Rousseau's challenges, remains contested. Perhaps representative democracy genuinely preserves popular sovereignty through constitutional mechanisms. Or perhaps Rousseau was right that representation inevitably alienates sovereignty, making it free only during elections. Perhaps constitutional protections of minority rights can coexist with majority rule. Or perhaps Rousseau was right that either the people are sovereign, meaning the majority's will is supreme, or they aren't sovereign at all, and constitutional limits have alienated sovereignty to courts or other institutions. Perhaps large, diverse nation-states can sustain democratic legitimacy through institutional design. Or perhaps Rousseau was right that genuine self-government requires the human scale of small republics, and large states inevitably become oligarchies disguised as democracies.
These questions don't have obvious answers. Rousseau's genius was posing them so starkly that we cannot ignore them. His radicalism was refusing the compromises that make his questions less urgent but also make politics possible. The social contract challenges us to think seriously about what political legitimacy requires, not just what's practical or what we can achieve, but what genuine self-government actually demands. By holding us to the highest standard, that we remained as free and civil society as we were in nature, that we obey only ourselves when we obey laws, Rousseau forces us to confront how far our actual political systems fall short. We can reject his conclusions, we can argue that his demands are impossible, or that attempting to meet them produces worse outcomes than accepting more modest achievements. But we cannot reject his fundamental question. How can we create political authority that doesn't just replace natural freedom with sophisticated enslavement? This is why Rousseau remains essential reading despite his paradoxes and dangers. He represents democracy's conscience, the voice insisting that popular sovereignty means something more than periodic elections, that self-government requires more than protecting individual rights, that political legitimacy demands more than institutional arrangements that keep the peace. Whether we should listen to that conscience or resist it is dangerous, remains the question Rousseau leaves us.